What's going on, everybody? Geronimo22. Gonna go over 3-match and 3-seam. Gonna give you guys the basic overview of its strengths, its weaknesses, a little bit of its history, and then let's talk about the changes that we have this year in Madden 25 and also in college football 25. Understand that the game is playing the same way when it comes to this coverage in both games, so everything I talk about here, for the most part, would be also crossover to college football 25. Now, when you're inside of a defensive playbook, okay, you're going to see two different words that pop up, but in Madden, most of the time, you're going to see the coverage called 3-seam, okay? College football is going to be called 3-match. So what this is a system that was around for about maybe 30, 40 years now. And really, it gives you the best of both worlds when it comes to stopping routes that go vertically down the field and also routes that are horizontal, or that cross across the field horizontally, and also break outside, okay? What we're talking about is really being able to stop an offense that wants to throw 4 verticals as their main play, let's say, okay? And what do people want to do versus a normal cover 3, country cover 3 zone coverage, okay? If it's a zone coverage, all right, what you will have here is your right corner and your left corner, all right, they will be playing 1/3 of the field. So pretty much from where the numbers are to the outside, they will be playing 1/3 of their field. And then down the middle, you get your safety playing somewhere about 2 yards inside the numbers on each side. And he would have to play pretty much numbers to numbers, okay? That's pretty much what you get when you get regular spot drop 3. Now, there wouldn't be any underneath defenders. Underneath defenders are the guys who are right here on the second level. This player, this player, this player, and this player who are spots who are dropping in the zone. They will not be carrying anybody deep. So what you will get is an example like this, where you have this type of route, okay, and you get a corner right now who has to play between this route. And he can't cover both of them, but he would try his best based off the QB's vision and how he's looking and trying to help out. So we'll talk about that more later. Right now, that's not what we're talking about, cover 3 sky, but that's how people will attack cover 3. So Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, people from back in the day decided to come up with a coverage, okay, that can take away the routes when they go past 10 yards down the field. A route that's past 10 yards, we consider that in coaching talk as a vertical route. Now, there are some different ways of teaching it nowadays. People sometimes don't teach numbers on the field. They don't say 10 yards. They don't say 8 yards. They talk more about how many steps a receiver comes off the ball. So after his 3rd step, after his 4th step, if he's still going vertical, it's a vertical. That's more of a new age way of doing it. But in general, if a route goes beyond 10 yards in the video game world, then you know it's a vertical. And so what we did, what was done was we gave an assignment to these curl flat defenders in cover 3 and called them something else, called them a seam flat defender. And that seam word, okay, the word seam means if anybody is running down the seam, you will now match that player. So what is matching? Well, matching is basically becoming man-to-man down the field. So we will go through the rules specifically, but just in general, anytime 2 went vertical, okay, any route past 10 yards, he would take them, okay? So if it's a vertical route like this, he would take them. If it was a corner route, all right, he would take that as well, all right? Because the route is past 10 yards, he would take it and he would run with them on this corner. If it was a post route, okay, he would also take that. So he would now pass 10 yards, right? He goes and he stays with that guy. He matches him. He mans him up, okay? So what that allowed the corner on the outside to do is also play the same similar type of rules, okay? And this is the original, just base way of playing it from really 10 years ago. Let's just talk about it. And also, this is the way Madden played for many years, but there are some changes this year. And we'll talk about that. But this corner, okay, we'll talk about who he's reading. But right now he's reading number 1. He goes vertical, he takes it. If he was to run any of the routes that I just showed you on number 2, he would also play those routes, including even a curl. If the guy ran a 12-yard curl, he would that's past 10 yards, he would stop and play that man-to-man, okay? So what that did was it allowed a defense to say, hey, offensively, whatever you want to do, if you want to go run deep routes down the field, we can basically turn into what? Cover 1, okay? We are basically a cover 1 defense when that happens, okay? With the outside corners and with our seam flat defenders. We also will have rules for our interior hook defenders as well, but we'll save that for later. Now, here's the great and the most probably genius thing about this defense, and I think anybody, when they hear it the first time, they're like, wow, that just makes a lot of sense. Well, what happens if a team was to run something like this? Mesh, right? 2 shallow crosses under 10 yards. Well, if you're playing man-to-man cover 1, that's day 1 training for an offensive coach to say, hey, if they're playing man, well, run away from them. Run something short and run away, run a shallow. And now maybe also this guy who's trying to cover his receiver across the field, he might get picked off, okay? Well, the defense says, well, we're not going to let you do that. So all of the players, especially these interior flat defenders, these seam flat defenders, are reading the guy right in front of them. And if that guy runs a shallow or something short under 10 yards, instead of matching him, he will now go back to his original rules that you would see in country cover 3, spot drop sky coverage, and he would become just a spot drop player. Okay, just so you know, spot drop is pretty much getting to like the numbers, about 10 to 12 yards for him. Okay, our inside guys, let me get to them real quick. They would get to 2 yards outside the hash at about 10 yards himself. All right, so they would spot drop to about right here. Spot drop to here. All right, and this guy would get to the numbers about 10 to 12 yards. All right, what that does is it allows now the defense to pass off these crossing routes, and then if it's under 5 yards for sure, they're definitely not going to chase them. And if the ball's thrown to any of the crossing routes, then there would be a tackle. So for example, if Smith-Schuster was running his route, right, we would get this player over here. These 2 players would what we call vice tackle this guy. As he comes across the field, he will tackle from outside in, and he would tackle from inside out, right? Or maybe just straight down. And that'd be hopefully a throw and a catch for maybe 5 yards. If you have big hit players like Seattle used to back in the day, you might cause a fumble, right? So that's the idea of the defense. So when you get short routes, play zone. And when you get deep routes, play basically match man, okay? Now, there's more to it, and we'll talk about the leverage of playing outside leverage. That's another great thing about this coverage. It gives you good leverage naturally to play outside breaking routes. It makes people throw it to the middle of the field, and usually there's one hook defender that's going to be definitely playing zone and not matching anybody, and he will be there to also help out. So it kind of turns into playing what? Cover 1 hole, so to speak, depending on the coverage, okay? So that's just the overview of what we're trying to get done. I'm going to give you guys the nuts and bolts of actual everybody's responsibility. Plus, we'll go through routes so you get a good feel for exactly what's going on in the coverage, okay? Now, this is formationally a spread 2x2 set, okay? Or just a double set. Traditional day 1 teaching today in football is this type of set, all right? So let's just take a look at the players so that when I start talking about number 1, number 2, I'm going to talk about the counting system, and then I'm going to come back and explain the first major new change in coverage that will affect the beginning of how we teach this coverage from the very beginning, okay? So let me just so what we have here is our receivers that are eligible to go out for a pass. Starting from the right, we count from the outside in. That's number 1. This tight end's number 2. When we get to the quarterback, we stop. We go to the other side, left-hand side, that's number 1, that's number 2, and this running back in the backfield is number 3. So that's the counting system. It really depends on how many guys are on one side of the quarterback, and that's how we count it out. 5 eligible receivers to go out. Passing strength would always be where there's more wide receivers. So if there was 3 players, 3 wide receivers, we would automatically go there. This guy here is not considered a wide receiver. We're talking about guys that are on the line of scrimmage or just barely off the line of scrimmage. Like right now, this player is on the line of scrimmage. He's one step behind the line of scrimmage. If we had another receiver standing over here like trips, that would be the passing strength. Away from passing strength would be where there's less wide receivers in general. So if there was 2 and 2, where's the tight end? The tight end's on the right, so that's considered the weak side. That's just a generic rule to talk about. It's important to know that because when we start talking about who has what, who matches number 1, who matches number 2, who we reading 2 to 1, 1 to 2, 3 to 2, you need to know what we're talking about. Okay, so when it comes to the actual assignments for each position, every player on the field, okay, usually has an assignment, okay, and a responsibility. So we always talk about what is your assignment? What do you have to do? What are you looking at? Where are your eyes? What are you keying? And then you go through a progression of if this, then that, okay? Or always do this unless you get them. Okay, it's kind of that type of scenario that we teach our players so that we can get them to understand the routes that they're looking for. But the most important thing is who are you looking at? Okay. So our corners on the outside, all right, our 2 corners, they have the same responsibility. The first thing we're going to look at overall is the formation. Okay. The formation, is it a spread formation or is it a condensed formation? This is what I would consider a spread, or I will sometimes say normal, because 1 and 2 are spread out. Okay. They are more than 5 yards apart. If for some reason they were tight, if number 1 was standing right here, right next to number 2, then we would call that a condensed, a stack, a compressed formation, and the rules would change. Okay. But for right now, we're just going to focus on 2 by 2 spread. Everybody's normal spacing, spread out, lots of space between the receivers. Okay. Our outside corners, okay, they're going to key 1 to 2. All right. And really, the way it's being played now is they're keying both 1 and 2. You have to be able to see both. Okay. And this, the way the game is playing right now, their technique is called M.E.S. It's a new word that really Madden just kind of added to their lexicon this year. It's a way that a lot of people are playing match coverage with the cover 3 match. Man everywhere. And it's not what you think. He goes, right? Meg. We all know Meg. But if you didn't, Meg is another version of it. But man every except, okay? So man except shallows, okay? And in the football world, a shallow is a drag, okay? So when you audible to somebody for a drag route, that's called a shallow in the football world. Now, I'm going to take it another level because I know that it's actually not just that route. It's also if the receiver was to run a smoke route, which is like a screen route, and it's one of the options you can use as a hot route, that also counts. And if for some reason he was to run a spot route where he just sits down right there at about 5 yards after running a straight 45-degree angle, which doesn't happen too often in the wide passing game, but they do have spot from this combination, that would also activate something. And what does it activate? Well, it activates that corner will now play spot drop cover 3. So anytime he gets a shallow, a smoke, or a spot, all 3 S words, okay, he will activate and play cover 3. If he doesn't get that, right, if he gets anything else, he will man him up and match him. He will match man him, okay? I'm going to talk about match man right now because it's a new term that also some people get confused with. This coverage is a man match coverage, okay? Meaning that we are going to tell you to pretty much play your man on particular routes. And when that happens, you are going to man him up, right? Turn into him. Don't worry about eyes on the quarterback. That's your guy. So it's part of the match family, but this is a man match. There are things called zone matches, which I'll talk to you later in this coverage about. But for right now, this is a man match principle. The other thing you need to know, okay, is, let me just say this. Let me just stay on number 1. If number 1, because back in the day, the route that really kind of made things hard, and we always had to think about it, was a slant route. So the guy took 3 steps and ran a slant. What does the corner do, right? Sometimes he would come off some people would teach it different. What happens if he ran a 5 yard in route, a shin route, right? What would the corner do? What happens if he runs a 5 yard out route? What would the corner do? Every year I had to go and analyze this because it would change depending on how they made Madden, depending on the year. Okay. But now those three routes, which to me are kind of like in that no man's land routes, are now taken away by the corner no matter what. Okay. So you don't have to worry about it. And then the very last thing I'll say is the corner has to have eyes also on number two because in the game, and I'm not sure if they teach it like this when it comes to real life. I've actually never coached in this style of playing M.E.S. So I'm kind of working through what I'm hearing from other people and also what happens. But if we get a drag route, okay, a shallow by two, the corner will also play deep third. So that's why I'm saying he's keying one and two. He's not just keying one to two. He's keying one and two together. He needs to see both of them. All right. So that's something that's a little bit different. Let's just take a look at it on the field, and then I'll talk about the inside guys next. But I want to show you M.E.S. because to me this is like the biggest change. Um, maybe it's tied with another one, but this is one of the biggest changes that we had to learn this year. And I found this out back in the beta when I was playing the beta that they had this plan because this has been in the game since then. Okay. All right, let's jump back on that battlefield. Okay, so we talked about the corner. Let's just look at some of the routes that we can get. We're going to just put the corner on, we're going to put number one on a shallow. Okay. We're going to focus on the left side of the screen, watch the corner, right? He's going to start for a couple steps with them and then go back and play zone. Now, the type of zone he's playing, he's just playing his outside deep third. Okay. He's not matching, he's not going to man match number two like he would in quarters coverage. He's just going back. Okay. Now, as you see, I'll talk about the safety here because he's also in the same predicament where he's reading one and two. But as you can kind of see, there's some flaws when it comes to this type of deal. But let's just go through the coverages. Let's run the smoke screen by number one. Okay. And then you can see what happens there. So I'm showing you guys naturally some of the issues when it comes to this coverage. All right. Please be responsible with this. Don't use it against somebody that you think, you know, you're trying to glitch, but the coverage has these issues. So this outside guy, right? He's going to start thinking, he's going to start saying, I got him, right, man. And then what route is it? Oh, wait, okay, it's a smoke route. Now let me go back to my deep third. Okay. Let's just talk about this, the seam flat defender, since it's kind of obvious, right? He has the same rule that we talked about with M.E.S. So he's playing his number two, okay, first off, wherever he goes. He's also keying number one. So right now it's a vertical route. He's thinking, I got to run with this guy, okay? For the first step, he's thinking, I got to run with them. Now, we'll talk about why he jumps inside leverage later on, but that's going to be a big thing that we will use to our advantage, but later on, okay? And then now he's actually converting to zone, okay? Right now, he jumped inside leverage. He's actually converting to a zone. He's out of the man match world, and he's actually using a zone match principle, okay? And like I said, I'll talk more about it, but then he comes back down to the flat to cover the guy that's in the flat. So this is one of the problems in the coverage right now is that the recognition's a little bit slow, and you're going to get this potential problem if number one runs any type of route that makes the corner and the safety not play their response. I mean, yeah, the corner and the seam flat player not make his responsibility correct. I don't have the spot route right now, so I can't do that. But most of the time, here's the good thing. Most of the time, you're going to get 5 yard shin routes, 5 yard in routes like this, okay? Or you're going to get slant routes. So if you run this coverage stock, you don't have to really think that, hey, I'm going to get beat on a one-play touchdown because most plays are designed this way right from the start. Okay, they're designed to even have a slant. A lot of people even like to audible to a slant, so you don't have to really worry about, oh, I'm going to get my ass beat. This coverage is garbage. So take a look at this, right? This is the 3-step slant, right? The corner, he's going to play the slant. And that's not in the category. That's not a shallow. It's not a smoke, and it's not a spot. Okay. And then this is our nickel right now, I think, right? So our nickel, our seam flat defender, let's just call him that. He has a vertical, so that's fine. And then also, this is not a shallow, smoke, or a spot. So he's just going to stay on 2 and match 2. So that's the advantage of the coverage. It plays that route pretty well. The 5-yard in route should be the same thing here, right? Those two guys are reading it out. Now, the linebacker to that side also needs to read it out as well. Now, his focus is more 3 and 2. 3 is away from him right now, so we won't have to really worry about it. But he needs to know, is there a shallow, a smoke, or a spot to know if he has to match 3, if 3 is to his side, okay? All right, we'll talk more about that later, but that to me is one of the biggest differences. So our seam flat defender is really keen to first, but he also needs to see one. So I'm going to say he needs to see both of them, all right? And I'm trying to think about what else is there that I can give you guys real quick. All right, let's take a look at it from the inside position as well. So our number 2 receiver, right? If he runs a shallow across the field, the safety is going to step and then go back and play his spot zone responsibility. Okay. I don't think I can get a smoke here, so it's not realistic. So that's not going to work. Even if I was to run a hitch, let me just run a 5-yard hitch. That player is going to stay with them. He's going to treat that like what? It's not a shallow. It's not a smoke. It's not a spot. So that's pretty easy. Now, both sides of the coverage are independent of each other. So as you see, I'm doing all these adjustments on the left. Let me give you another example here. Let's just go back to number 1, running a shallow. So on the left-hand side of the screen, we're going to get zone. On the right-hand side of the screen, we had 2 verticals. So we're going to see it as just man match principles on the right-hand side. So they are independent of each other. All right. And that's the thing that's new this year. All man match coverages are independent of each other. One side of the center can play man match. The other side can play zone. All right. Now you guys are probably figuring what is the fix? And I made this a quick video tip. It's part of the quick video tip series on how to fix this. And this was Jamal who came up with this. All right. So this here, if you're worried about people doing exactly what I showed you, and they're going to put number 1 on a route like a shallow, and then have number 2 run even worse than a regular vertical would be like a fade vertical, right? A fade route that works out towards the sideline. Just man up your outside guy. Okay. So what we're doing here is basically playing Meg. If you turn this player, your corners, into man Meg corners, okay, we're doing it on both sides. Because you're worried about some opponent, he's crafty, he knows this stuff. He's going to try something on you, right? What happens here is if I run a drag on the outside, okay, and let me run a smoke on the other side just so you can see both. Hold on. Okay. All right, there we go. We got a drag on the left, we got a smoke on the right. What happens when I run this play is that because the corners are are playing Meg. Let's just call it Meg. Because they're megging 1, you put them in a manual Meg. The seam flat defenders will stay with the vertical route of 2. Okay, so that's good. So any type of vertical route, they will stay with them. You won't get a 1-play touchdown on you for bad match. So that's something that you must consider versus if you're going to be a heavy cover 3 team, you have to consider using this coverage, putting your outside corners in man coverage, which I know is not the best way to play this year. But if you're playing somebody, you might want to mix that up. If you see them do it to you one time, they're probably going to do it twice. If you've watched film and you see them make the audibles to do this against you, be smart. Okay. So that's a little tip for you guys. What else is there? All right. So that's like the biggest difference when it comes to the coverage based on playing M.E.S. Now, these inside guys are playing it just like last year. Now, the last thing I'll do in this intro, and then we're going to come back again and do every formation and go through I'm going to give you guys routes and do that stuff in the next video. But this is just the intro video. But you need to know this. Versus 3x1 this year, we are still playing match this year. Where in the past, it would three match or three seam would convert to playing spot drop cover 3 in the past. This year, it will actually play match coverage. And the rules that they call it is skinny. Okay, skinny. So let me get back on the telestrator and let's talk about skinny. Full disclaimer, I've never coached skinny, but I have coached playing match coverage to 3x1 out of 3 seam, okay? And the rules are very similar, but there are some little differences that I'm going to explain to you how it was taught to me. I am not an expert on it. I may not have the lingo down perfect. So I know a lot of guys because the word skinny comes from Nick Saban. And it's something that they use in that system. And I want to make sure I represent it correctly, but I don't have all the answers to skinny. But in general, from what we had talked about, our corners are still playing. Well, let's talk about the strong side. So let's just cross that guy out for now because there are some problems right now on the backside. Our strong side corner is playing M.E.S. Okay. So his rules apply the same as we have in 2x2. Okay. And then the same thing with our strong side seam flat defender. He's also playing M.E.S. So everything we just talked about, it's all the same. I don't have to repeat it. It's the same rules. Those guys are keying 1 and 2 together. Okay. Now the big difference is, coach, now you have a third receiver. Okay. We have 1, 2, 3 on the line of scrimmage who can attack you vertical. How do we handle this? Okay. The way that I understand this is this hook defender. So the hook defender to the three receiver side. Okay. His responsibility is basically to read that side of the field. Okay. So I don't know how it's taught in real life when it comes to reading 3, 2, and 1. But in the gaming world, he needs to see all of this. Okay. But really, your eyes are really focused on number 3. If he goes vertical, okay, down the field, then he's going to work to the outside leverage of number 3 and match him down the field. Okay. So that's what I've noticed. So a vertical route, again, guys, is anything over 10 yards. So if he goes and runs a corner, that's considered a vertical route. It's called a corner. He would be on the outside leverage of this route and play it. Okay. Which is really used to be, from my old school system of playing 3 match, that used to be a problem because we never had this specific rule of playing skinny. All right. So let me just write this up here. And we're going to come back to this, guys, when we do the 3x1 and really cover it. But I think you need to know this if you're using this coverage because you don't want to be out here and messing it up yourself, especially a lot of us user that player. Okay. So again, anything that's vertical, he would take that and play outside leverage. Now, the one route that you would get from a 3x1 formation also that's vertical is that deep crossing route, right? Something you would see if we get 4 verts. Usually that's the route that comes with number 3. This is the one route from what I understand. He would start outside leverage, but then he would drop that off and let it go. Okay. So this is considered a vertical, but it's a crossing route. This is a very specific route. It's just playing routes right now. Okay. And he's going to let that go and look for a new number 3. He might start to work back downhill, which usually is what the running back running this type of like bingo route, coming through a check down route. So that's something that we have to be aware of. Now, before I get to the weak side hook player, let me just go back. If 3 goes to the flat right now, okay, and the skinny call in real life, if I'm not mistaken, if this is not a very realistic route here. Sometimes it'll be the running back, but it doesn't matter. There will be an exchange, if I'm not mistaken, with the seam flat player. That's considered what we call a fast 3. So anything under 5 yards right now to the flat, it's considered a fast three. That's what it's called. And the seam flat player would come off, okay, and take that. But in this case, we are not getting a fast three rule right now in the game. So this player will still match that guy on anything quick into the outside. So if we get like a flood combination, right, and this guy runs a little 5 yard out, you got to take it. If we got a stick combination, let me erase that. If we got a stick route combination where he works out 5 yards and he goes vertical, he has to take that. So I honestly don't mind it. I think you can get away with it. I know there's a lot of people out there that swear that you need the fast three rule. I need to actually, it's going to probably take more effect when it comes into RPOs and how do you play RPOs correctly. So we'll come back to that later when we get to some of the run fit stuff, but that's part of it. Now, the weak side player here is what we call a 3-up player. Okay. And this is actually going to be pretty big when we go to 2x2 again, because there are some principles here where we have like a 3-up player or an up player. Okay. And this is kind of converting to a little bit of, in my personal opinion, I could be wrong. Don't quote me on this. Some of the Seattle 3, the Legion of Boom style defense of having the weak side player away from the third receiver versus 3x1, be able to take care of this crossing route. And this was in the game in the past, just so you know. This was in the game in the past, all right? It just didn't show up in certain formations, certain routes, but now it is obvious, okay? And if you ever go on the field, we'll go jump on the field quickly here. We're not going to spend too much time on it, but you will see this player start to work this way towards number 3, all right? Because if he goes vertically down the field, there is a safety here, obviously. But we know that this player is going outside, and this guy is going to kind of play off the inside leverage of number 3. And especially if he goes down the field, he's going to roll and match that down the field and run with them. So it's called a 3-up player. That's pretty much how you play it versus 3x1 from how I understand it. Okay. Now, that's the base rules that we really need to talk about. The backside, I want to just go back and do a little more studying. I have in my notes that it's a little bit funky. Our seam flat player here is still reading 2 and 1. Okay. All I know off the bat right now in my notes that I'm keeping track of is if 2 doesn't go to the flat, let's say he just blocks. Okay. Let's say he goes through the line of scrimmage and goes somewhere inside. What happens is this player here turns into a zone defender. So it's like he's treating number 2. This is the number 2 to the side, similar to like M.E.S, where number 2, his rule is if he doesn't go to the flat, turn into a spot drop third. And why is that bad? And then this guy would turn into a spot drop third. A curl flat, or just a curl. What happens is there's a lot of routes on the backside. It's a horrible drawing. Is these big dig routes, about by 15, 16 yards. And a lot of times they get butt naked because he's going back and not playing it. He's working out. He's working this way to stay inside of 3. And there's a huge void right there in the game. So another rule, again, in 3x1, if you really want to play this sound and you worry about people running a classic combination like flood, right? And this guy stays in the blocks and he runs this type of route, is to meg up the backside, man this guy up so you don't have to worry about the potential of that guy running naked across your defense, okay? So that's just a little quick tip that you can use right now. So you guys are using this defense. But the whole idea of us being able to play match to 3x1 is huge. It's a great thing. And not to go too far ahead of myself, obviously versus empty, let's say the running back was here, right? He wasn't in the backfield. We're still going to get match coverage. And then the last and most important thing I think that you guys need to know in this intro is if we get 4x1, so let's say the back isn't here, he's standing over here. So this is going to be considered 1, 2, 3, and the running back is 4. Usually this will turn any match coverage defense back in the spot drop zone. Okay, it still does if you play quarters. It will turn match quarters into cover 4 spot drop. All right, but this coverage will not do that. Okay, everybody will still play their match rules And based off of number 4, we'll get these guys pushing. And the most important thing is, let's say number 4 goes to the flat. This player here, who's keying 3, well, his new number 3, he just keeps pushing out, and the new number 3 would be this flat route guy. Okay, so he would react up to the flat. And then now this weak side player, he would work off of number 4, the new number 4. That's a lot of drawings right there. I'm sorry I can't really give you a better drawing. If I had a whiteboard, it'd be better, but let's just do this. Let's just run these guys vertical. And let's say there's a halfback here. Okay, so our corner would match 1. Our seam flat defender would match 2. Our number 3 player would end up matching this 3. And this 4-up player would get inside leverage of number 4. Pretty cool, right? I'm pretty sure that's how it works out. So this is something you can use versus teams that come out in that type of formation. It's my number 1 check right now, because I don't think people understand that we're still playing match. All right. So I won't jump back on the field to show this part, because again, this is an intro and it's already going on pretty long. I'm going to give you guys something that you can just chew into right now. You can sink your teeth into, and you can go play the coverage, understanding the base rules. And I will remind you, if you do get a compression set, so if we got a bunch set right now, if the Z and the F was here, okay, what happens is this turns into zone match. They basically will play spot drop. The only exception would be, and I'll talk about this in the next video, the seam flat defender, he's not going to spot drop out here right now. He's going to go straight back and then work his way back out, which I call in the video game world a zone match. He's going to relate to the players in front of him, and then he's going to get to his landmark, which kind of holds off a lot of the inside throws. So this is another reason why this, in my opinion, is my number 1 coverage. It's the reason why I think in all of my leagues, my pass defense is one of the best. This is my number 1 coverage in college football, pro football, every team. It's not getting me the interceptions that I would like, all right? But it is stopping people from getting yards. All right, so that was the intro, guys. That's a long intro, I know. Every video won't be this long going forward. It will be more based on formations. And like I did last year, I think looking at routes is better than just having a still picture. It kind of sinks in a little bit different. And some of you guys have been rocking with me for about 3 years now, so I know this seems like a review to a lot of people, but this is what you have to do. And even me as a coach, I need to go back and do this every year to fully understand all the little things that you need to get better. All right. Thanks for rocking with me, guys, on Patreon. This video will go public in probably a week or so, but I want you guys to get this first. And then from this point on, we have all the little individual videos that you guys get that'll be really kind of specific to just the Patreon. Those videos won't get live and those won't hit the Madden streets until like the springtime, so don't worry about that stuff. All the little tips and all the adjustments that I give you guys, I'm going to give you guys that stuff, and you guys are going to have that for the majority of the Madden cycle. Okay. But there are some little things I want the public to know about the problems with cover 3, and I kind of covered that today, but I also gave you the answer to it too. So, all right, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. I'll talk to you in the next video. Peace.